Hello, and welcome to Nostalgia Marcana. I'm your host, Doug Lief. Each episode of this podcast, we'll look back on the movies, TV, games, people, and phenomena that we still love talking about all these years later, and ask ourselves why these bits of pop culture still enchant us today. This week, we'll be revisiting... The television landscape is littered with also-rans, shows that were quickly canceled after one season. There are a handful in that canon that are widely considered to be big, huge mistakes. I can think of a few. Firefly comes to mind. And today's subject, My So-Called Life, a show that clearly just had a lot more gas in the tank before networks decided to cut it wrongfully. And I'm really excited to talk about this one. I know we've been promoting it for a while. And this is our first episode that's going to be not just one guest, but a roundtable discussion. I figured it fitting we'd have an entire clique with us to talk about My So-Called Life. So to introduce, we have some returning folks. We have, of course, you know her, you love her, from the Power Ballads episode, my wife, Amy Lief.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
And from our Goonies episode, fresh off the glow of Ke Huy Quan's Oscar win, Tania Newton.
Good evening, everyone.
And the pride of Irvine, Kristin Perez.
Oh, popping my podcast cherry.
A fitting subject, I think, for My So-Called Life. So I know you guys all were like gung-ho to talk about My So-Called Life. So I want to hear why. We'll start with you, Tania, I guess.
All right. Well, this was a show that took place, 95? So we are all 41, 42 years old. So this was right. All right, Doug. A little bit older. But this was a show that was right in like the perfect nook of us being 14 and angsty and just feeling all the feels and it not being glossy. And I think just being, as I warned, it hits you in the feels in just the right way. And every time I watch it, or every time I encourage someone to watch it, I'm just like, it just makes you feel 15 again. And I think it's just, it brings me back to having too many feelings and not being able to process them.
Amy, how about you?
Yeah, definitely the same. I mean, there's so much about the show that resonates with like, not that I had boyfriends, but being boy crazy and having problems with friends and just kind of being in school while all of that is happening. So it just, a lot of it just kind of felt like something I was experiencing alongside of the characters. Like they would have been, maybe Angela would have been my friend and we would have been experiencing this like stuff together. So just a lot of familiarity with the topics.
Kristin?
I don't know, the ages from 15 to 25 is like a blur. I don't know exactly when I connected with this show. I think it was, in my early 20s. I don't think I watched this when, it came out. So I think what I loved about the show is I kind of was being able to process my teenage years, like in hindsight. So I kind of looked back in the rearview mirror, like, oh wow, this age was hard. Like there was so much going on.
Is that what we gave you, the DVDs?
Yeah, and I think I was in my 20s, so I just appreciated it for like looking back on that age.
It's funny. I don't have nostalgic memories for the show. This was my first time watching it. I think we dipped a toe into it once, maybe a year ago. And so this time I sat down and we watched all 19 episodes. My memories of it, I remember it being on. I remember not watching it at the time. But sort of speaking to your perspective, Kristin, I remember seeing that box set of My So-Called Life DVDs in so many dorm rooms and apartments in college and around that time, because I think so many people can identify with this. I definitely did not watch it and feel a kinship with Angela, or that just she was not my character. I watched her and went, well, I must be Brian Krakow. That's who I am in this scenario. But yeah, it really captures just that moment in the feeling was like to be in high school in the 90s. It's perfect.
I mean, I think a good contrast, you have like My So-Called Life, and then you have 90210. And you had, and 902 was so glossy and beautiful and bright and shiny. And this was, I think, a more realistic version of being 15 and 14, whatever, 15 or 16 years old and liking a boy. And it wasn't about, I don't know. I mean, there was, without getting too much into it, like the symbolism or how powerful it was to hold a boy's hand. It wasn't about, it was those smaller, more intimate feelings than it was sort of that, like, again, the more teen bop drama show, which, don't get me wrong, I love 90210 too, but this holds my heart in a very specific way. And so I think there is a contrast between this being a little more that gritty and that more intimate than sort of, there's just a different feel than something like that. And so...
And I think a lot of that, like, is attributed to, like, the cast of characters too, and, like, their acting abilities. I feel like Claire Danes has, like, a depth that, like, no offense to Shannon Doherty, she just doesn't have.
Yeah.
So I feel like it would have been a completely different show had it not been Claire Danes. And I think I read something recently that it was, like, Alicia Silverstone was, like, possibly one of the contenders. And it would have been, I feel like, because of the cast that they picked, it resonated more than like a 90210.
You love how Claire Danes cries in this show.
Yeah.
That is one thing that you always come back to.
Yeah. I feel like that was one of the things I was going to mention too about, like, why does it resonate so much with you, is because it helps you tap into that emotion. Like, if you need to cry, you just watch Angela cry and she'll bring those emotions to you and you can, like, let it all out.
Yeah.
I think what you're speaking to is that, 90210 and shows like it are the fantasy of what high school is like. And this is much more the reality of what high school is like. Not to say that there aren't, things aren't amped up or there aren't fantastical elements to it. There's at least like 2 episodes with ghosts. But like it is still, but by and large, like the emotional truth of what's going on in these episodes is absolutely like true to life. To me, it reminds me a lot of The Breakfast Club. And there's not quite a 1-to-1 correspondence from those 5 characters to like these 5 main characters, but it's close. Like, there's a lot of mixing and matching of like, yeah, Jordan Catalano is Judd Nelson's character pretty much, So there's something about that truth of feeling like in high school and lost and not knowing who you are and not knowing how to process your emotions that this absolutely taps into.
Yeah, I don't know about anyone else here, but it was funny watching it this time around, like recently. Is because I connected so much more to Patty and the parent characters. Like, I never even paid attention to their storyline. I thought it was so boring. But I was like, oh my gosh, now that we have kids, it's like, oh, how's it going to be to have like a 15-year-old in the house? Like, it looks so hard. And I just sympathized with her so much more.
I don't know what to make of the parent characters. I wasn't sure how everyone felt about them.
I still think Patty is obnoxious. I think she's such a nag. I think she's a nag on Graham. I think she's a nag on her daughters, but I love those scenes when like Angela's like flitting through when she's clearly happy and she's like happy with her parents and they're both looking at each other like, what just happened? And they just like take it for the moment because that is so the exception. But oh yeah, no, I still maybe because every time I watch a show, I lock right into like that 15-year-old self. But that's funny. I hadn't thought about it from, like, the parent perspective.
Because even in the first episode, the pilot, like, Patty, the mom, runs the company for that keeps her family, like, makes the money for the family. The dad, I don't know what he does. He's, like, a stay-at-home dad, or maybe works for Patty.
Yeah.
He does it first, yeah.
Yeah, at first he works for her. And so it was just, like, the reason why she's a nag is because she's, like, keeping the family, like, moving forward. Like, she runs the family. And I don't know. I connected with her.
I think that they, like, had to go on, like, 2 sides of the extreme just to, like, bring out, like, your connection to your parents. So, like, you've got the one parent who's, like, the nag and, like, but they're dependable. And then you have, like, the fun dad who, like, maybe bends the rules a little bit. I think that just this show works better having that, like, dynamic rather than having, like, 2, like, quote unquote normal parents.
You mean if they were better at parenting, the show wouldn't work?
Well, I think they're good parents, and I think like Graham tries maybe a little bit too hard, and Patty like doesn't quite know how to connect with her kids, but she's there when you need her.
Yeah.
Which is what I love about that character. And Angela always calls her when she needs her.
Yeah.
Which is like always a sweet moment to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, in watching the parent dynamic, I kind of felt like Patty's problem throughout the show was like she just sort of commands things sometimes instead of just why not just ask Angela what she's going through and let her tell you. And I feel like a lot of problems could have been solved if she was just more interested in listening to her perspective than just kind of shutting her down and saying like, nope, you can't do that. Well, why shouldn't you do that? Why is it a bad idea? Why do you want to do that? Work through that. And maybe there would have been a little more or a little less friction. But then again, it's a drama. You need that friction.
And I think when we learn more about like Patty's character, like further down the line where she had like a lost love, like there were chances where she could have connected more with Angela and it just doesn't for some reason. Like she has that like unrequited love with someone that I think happens like towards the end of the series.
Yeah. Like the last episode.
If she opened up more about like her own personal circumstances, and maybe that's something like, I don't know, how much are we going to share with like our kids about like our lovers and things when they're 15, 16. I think that's like a lost opportunity for Patty.
Yeah, she doesn't relate to her kids. She
Right.
definitely doesn't relate to Angela.
Does anybody here have a favorite character? Like which one do you identify with the most?
I think like I wanted to be more like Angela in high school, but I feel like I'm definitely more of a Brian Krakow. Like kind of on the outskirts, like wanting to fit in a little bit and like not quite knowing like how to connect with people. Like a little bit awkward. I think I'm a Brian. And that's not to say that he's like my favorite character, but like I think if I had to pick myself out of them, I'm a Brian.
That's a really fun insight. I never would have even thought about that. For you, even. I really like that. I don't know. I feel like Sharon is probably, I don't know.
You mean
like,
Deborah?
Before we started, we were trying to go over the characters, and Kristin was like, "What's her name, Deborah?"
Because she's just sort of the like generic best friend, like
She could be a Deborah.
interchangeable name, generic name.
But I feel like Sharon is sort of capable. I mean, she was sort of popular, but not really.
She had the popular boyfriend. So I think, and her like body made her popular, so she became popular.
None of that was me, but I feel like I wasn't as like, I don't know. I guess I like boys in the same way like Angela did, but I don't know if I...
You definitely were more on like the like ASB and the yearbook and like the
like
popular,
more on the Sharon side of like
the popular
stuff.
Nerd group.
Fair.
Which I mean, we all
Fair.
kind of
Yeah,
were.
fair.
I mean, I wasn't like popular, but like.
What do you think, Kristin?
I guess Angela and Sharon, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, lately, Patty.
They're definitely the most quote unquote normal characters on the show, Angela and Sharon. I mean, and they are, former best friends. That makes sense. And I saw Sharon's struggle as kind of like, the universe wants her to be normal and she wants to be normal. And every time like some instinct within her kind of bubbles up and wants to buck against that, that's where like trouble starts for her, where she's like, no, I want, she's like, well, I don't want to be just stared at for my body, but I also really like this guy. And I really like all of those like competing emotions within her. It was interesting to sort of watch her struggling because she is sort of like this satellite on the outside of the other main characters.
Yeah, it would have been fun to like dive into her, like had there been a season 2, like one where you kind of like follow her around.
Like the Sharon episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have here in Wikipedia what a few of the things would have been for a second season or planned ideas, and one was for her to get pregnant.
I totally hate that. Amy sent me a link for whatever the like planned season 2, and I hated almost the entire. And that to me really pissed me off.
Why don't you share like all the things so Kristin knows all of them?
Okay, I'll just read it here. There's a short paragraph in Wikipedia, so whatever this is, what it's worth. Planned storylines. Had the show continued, when creator Winnie Holzman said a second season would potentially have seen Patty and Graham getting a divorce, which they were certainly laying track for.
I'm okay with that portion.
It's fine. Like I said, they were laying the track for it, right?
Yeah.
Of like they were clearly having problems. He's semi-cheating or about to cheat.
This is not his first time having emotional cheating.
An affair.
Yeah.
Right. So Angela turning to Brian for comfort. Again, at the very end, they lay out that possibility. Sharon dealing with a teen pregnancy, and Brian and Delia getting together at some point.
There was something else that when Amy sent me the link that was like, and Brian and Angela just make eyes at each other for the whole season because Angela and Jordan are together and Brian's with whatever that girl is. And I'm just like, I don't know. I guess I could see it, but I found the whole premise of season 2 to be very disappointing.
I just don't see Brian and Angela having a romantic.
I don't know.
Connection.
I think we should go through part of the season first, but I don't know, like that. You see Brian through the whole season, like, love her. And Angela just never appreciate Brian for anything. And then the last episode just been like, it just opens it up. I just think it would be unfair that Brian then got tied down with someone else. It just seems like that would be like a season 3 problem. And then Angela would be the one mooning over her in season 3 if Brian was single in season 2.
Yeah. I don't think Angela and Brian Krakow are meant to date in high school, but I definitely think they get married in their 20s.
Oh, I like that idea. Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah, I think it would be nice. I mean, a season 2 would have dealt with that concept of, like, really wanting someone who is just, they might appreciate it. They might, think you're a perfectly fine person, but they just don't have feelings for you. I mean, that's certainly my high school experience. But
right person, wrong time.
Perhaps, yeah. And I think that could have been interesting to explore with that character. But yeah, I don't think he's quite right for her, and I don't think Jordan is right for her. We haven't talked about Jordan Catalano much, but I was under the impression that he would be such this like focal point for the season, and he sort of is, and he sort of isn't. I'm curious before I say what my opinion of Jordan Catalano is, I want to see what you guys think of him.
Kristen, why don't you go first?
Oh my goodness. He's just the dreamboat that is unavailable and unattainable, but fun to fantasize about. Mm-hmm. That's, the role that he plays in the show for me. Like, there's just not much substance to him. But he is older and mysterious and can show you the way.
He does seem older, but I don't know that they ever addressed, like, what his actual age is.
Well, he's driving. We know that.
But he has been held back a couple times.
Okay.
Because I think he's like 2 years older than her.
He's like in the same classes, but he's definitely older.
I think he's been held back twice.
Okay.
But I think there was an episode towards the second half so they're actually dating. When they go to the house to try to, like, when they're going to try to have, like, and the, Hallie, is that her name?
Yeah.
The restaurateur. Mm-hmm. She sort of summarizes it for Patty, and she's like, he's kind of checked out. Maybe he's not super dumb, but it's not all there. And I felt like that was actually very accurate to being 41 and sort of being like, yeah, that's probably about accurate. I found it to be, but he is just like the teenage dreamboat with those eyes.
And the guitar.
And the red car. And there's like the scene where they're breaking up and she's like putting her fingers through his hair and like it's so soft.
At least you got in some driving practice.
Yeah.
Just, don't take your turns too wide or anything. I'm sure you won't.
Sometimes someone says something really small, and it just fits right into this empty place in your heart. Your hair. The way it's really soft. Like in the back. I'm really gonna miss that.
Yeah?
Huh? I guess this is it. So... goodbye.
Bye. I'll see you tomorrow.
He's like the boy that you have the crush on, but you don't know why. Like, you don't know anything about him, you just think he's hot. And then when you start to like get together with him or like try to, you learn that like, okay, maybe he's not that great of a guy. And
like half the boys we had nicknames for in high school, or like the barista I dated at the office for a while.
I think like when I was 15, 16 watching this, I thought he was like the bee's knees and he was so hot, and like I didn't remember having like any negative feelings about him. Just like, why doesn't he like Angela? And now watching it, I'm like, why the fuck does she like him? Yeah. There's nothing like redeemable about it. So he's good looking, but like so many other people are good looking. What is he? And he doesn't like
redeemable when you say that though. But he has moments of thoughtfulness, like when he kind of is like thoughtful with Ricky, when he kind of helps out Ricky a little bit. Like in the Christmas episode, he takes him to like the shelter, or he takes him to that house, which is not great, but it's helping him, you know, in small increments. Or when he's actually strangely nice to Brian, he's not like just a dick. He runs with like a shitty group of guys, but he himself is not necessarily like an outright dick, I think, as his default position.
I don't think that's why like Angela's attracted to him though.
No, you're right. Those are things totally
those are like,
aside
he happens to be nice to Ricky once in a while, or he happens to be this, but like her initial attraction to him has nothing to do with any of those characteristics.
Totally fair. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was a shitbird.
Would you have been friends with Jordan Catalano?
No. I mean, I wouldn't
have tutored Jordan Catalano.
I would have been more likely to do that.
Would you have written his papers for him?
I would not have done that. I would not have written
letters.
No, I would not have written his papers. I would not have been his Cyrano de Bergerac, as Brian is at the end of season 1. My problem with him was I think I really fell off with him in that episode where he's like really pressuring her to have sex with him, and he's pretty awful about it, the way he kind of goes about it. And there's a later episode where they deal a lot with him, like, does he not want to be seen with her in public? He won't like talk to her. It's very weird.
You're thinking of the episode right before it. You're thinking of Self-Esteem. Okay. That's my favorite episode.
The hands?
The hand holding, and when he's horrible to her at Buffalo Tom.
Yeah, all that stuff where it's like, okay, is it just that he just wants to, get laid and that's it? Does he, they do show flashes of like, okay, where they're trying to get you to empathize with him more, but like he's barely literate, and he is, there are, I think someone describes him in the shows as having all of this like wasted potential, and I think that is the key to him, is that like they want to show you like there is potential there, and maybe in subsequent seasons they would have. Mm-hmm. He would have come out a little more, and I imagine that's where they wanted to go with him. But
definitely,
at first,
he's a stoner, and they don't show that on the show,
or that he's got like a learning disability. I think there's probably maybe a bit of both.
Well, it's definitely both. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely learning disability because they address that.
But yeah, he's definitely a stoner too. He's definitely just
he's doing the eye drops all the time, which is like
that is a signal. Yeah, that's a 90s signal without saying.
Does he seem like stonery or like drunky? Like, what is his drug of choice?
I think stoner.
I think he's stoner.
Yeah, Kristen's
like,
right.
Kind of like just aloof and like isn't really present. Like that's, I think, a little bit of being stoned.
Yeah. You saw it in the episode 6, The Substitute. I had to go look it up. So when they have this, they try to basically do a mini version of Dead Poets Society.
Yeah.
And you see him like responding to this kind of semi-fraudulent substitute teacher. And they're like, that's the moment where you're like, okay, I think I'm going to connect with this guy, and there's going to be something in there that gets unlocked. But then they kind of retreat from that, and they don't get back to it. And again, maybe, season 2, 3, whatever they would have done.
Is that like a commentary on like teachers and like how because it's like he's the best teacher I ever had, because he's the one teacher that gave him attention and like gave him a chance and like dove deeper. So I just wonder, like, is that like, are they trying to say something about like the education system? It's probably not.
Oh, they're definitely saying that the system failed him to some degree. Yeah, that's definitely in there.
Well, you come in with like a reputation, and you just kind of, the other teachers hear about you,
right? So they're not willing to like. They're like, oh, he's just a stoner. I'm not going to worry too much about him. He's failed a couple years,
right? Where I think that's a really fun episode. If we're going to sort of talk about episodes, like it's fun. It's definitely, what do they call? Is that what they call like a pocket episode, or
no? You're thinking of a bottle episode.
No, which is not exactly, but it's just very specifically like it's this kind of cool episode that's just sort of singularly focused on that substitute. And where you kind of see how he pulls out different facets of each of these characters that you didn't see prior to the episodes previous to it.
I just think what you did yesterday wasn't right. I mean, in terms of common courtesy. I just think it showed a lack of respect.
You mean when I threw your work out the window?
Yeah. I mean, that oak tree poem, that was mine.
Oh.
I put a lot of thought into that.
Did you?
Yes. I mean, why'd you do it?
Why did I do it? Good question. I did it to clear the slate. I did it to wake you up. I did it to do something. To find you. And now guess what? Here you are, wide awake, right in front of me. I mean, wasn't that worth it? I mean, that, poem, that, oak tree poem. That was yesterday. What are you going to write today?
Good question.
Yeah, he challenges them.
Yeah. And you see where Angela, who is usually a pretty quiet character, kind of come out of her shell and really fight for him. You see how he helps Jordan. You see where Sharon sort of
She
comes
like
out of her shell.
embraces
She
her
writes
in
this thing.
sexuality a little bit.
And I think it amplifies like Rayanne, which we haven't even talked about.
We haven't even talked about Rayanne.
We haven't even talked about
There's
Rayanne
so much to
yet.
unpack with Rayanne.
And
It's like
BTW, she's royalty or some kind of
she's
British
like
aristocracy.
a lady, I think, or a what is
no,
she?
She
she's
married
a
into it, yeah.
Countess.
Yes.
She's a countess.
She's a great character. I really liked her.
I think she's she's probably the second best actress on the show. Like Claire
She's
Danes
so
obviously
well
is the
acted.
winner, but I feel like it's such a
AJ
understated AJ Langer. It's like
Phenomenal actress.
Like I wish we'd seen more of her besides just
Yeah.
like People Under the Stairs, which she was in. Funnily enough, like I think she could have really.
Did Claire Danes win she won an Emmy or a Golden Globe
She
for
did.
this,
And
right?
I don't know that Rayanne was even nominated.
She should have. She was
She should
very,
have been.
very good. She
Yeah.
could have been definitely an award winner.
Well, I like that they have, so her two best friends are Rayanne and Ricky, both of whom are from what are clearly troubled homes,
Yeah.
maybe to a greater degree with Ricky. I feel like there's like hints of that with Jordan as well. That like we never see his family, but something's up.
I think he relates to Ricky at some point with like my father beats me or something.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore now that I'm bigger, something like that.
Yeah.
That he says. But yeah, he's got a home issues too.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that the show, that's some heavy stuff to bring out in its first season, that both of these characters have pretty unconventional and not great home lives.
It's kind of oh, go ahead, Kristin.
I was gonna say, like, I was questioning, like, what draws Rayanne to Angela? I mean, they're kind of polar opposites, right? And so what Angela likes about Rayanne is that she's, like, wild and crazy and unleashing this, like,
not
freedom
Sharon
in her.
Yeah.
And then Rayanne's kind of clutching for that, like, stability, I guess. That's what she likes about her. But she's trying to take her away from that stability. She's, like, almost trying to, like, make her a little carbon copy of herself. Like, make her a more, like, go out and party type of gal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, like, I don't really know, like, why they became friends. You know, you never see the origin story of that. And I'm like, I wonder how that started.
They must have both been, like, seeking something additional in their lives.
Yeah.
Well, they're complementary, right? Like, as you said, Rayanne is constantly trying to get Angela to come out of her shell, to be more of a free spirit. But they don't even, it's commented upon, like, eventually they wind up at Rayanne's house and we meet her mom. But they've been friends for a long time before they ever go over to Rayanne's house. Like, an abnormally long time. Like, I can't imagine being friends with somebody around that age and not going over to their house at least once in 6 months.
I mean, I think, like, I don't know that I ever got bored with you guys. I mean, we were all friends in high school. Yeah. And I don't think we ever had, like, bored situations. But I think there were times where, like, I know there was a friend that you had that you kind of, like, went off with, like, Carrie. Do you remember her? And she was more of, like, the cooler, like, not quite the Rayanne
like
type,
the
but, like,
Rayanne-ish.
Rayanne on
free
the
spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, most of our, like, experiments with, like, drinking and stuff, I mean, that came a little bit later. So I could see how one of us would maybe have, like, kind of gone out of this, like, gone away from, like, the center. Like, had we been, I don't know. Most of our we were experimental more together rather than like
Right.
we didn't seek it outside as much. So maybe Sharon wasn't like fun enough for Angela.
Just changing. I think she was trying to figure out what her boundaries were. I think she was testing those limits. Like, as for an example, I went to Tulane, I think, because I didn't want to have some of the same thing. Not that I didn't want to go to Berkeley and be with Kristin or something like that, but I think it was exciting to try something different and maybe be a different version of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's what Angela was trying to do, was see how could you be you, but be a little bit different and not, if you're going to school with the same exact people that know exactly what you are and have the exact expectations for what you are and who, how do you branch out? How do you sort of grow? I'm trying to find something different without some of those. I don't want to put it as like a constraint, but I think is not always being reminded of, well, your mom wouldn't like that or something to that effect.
Yeah.
I think she was looking for something different, is how can I be different? Even in that first episode, even in the pilot where Sharon sort of was like, I bet Patty hates your hair. Is she knows Sharon's still always that touchstone, but she can try something new with Rayanne.
Right.
And Ricky.
I like that she like gets to a point where like at some point like Rayanne and Sharon are kind of friends, and then at some point like Angela still is able to have those connections with two, because it's so important to have like the friend that you've had forever and then the new friends, and then it all kind of like merges together until like, I don't know that Rayanne and Angela would have been friends like past high school. Like maybe they're like Angela would have gone on to college and like,
Sharon
new
would have
experiences.
always been there, I think.
She would have gone back to Sharon at some point. Like they would have been I think they would have been friends forever.
But even, in that episode about the sex, Angela felt comfortable talking to Sharon. She knew where her sort of home base was, and that she could ask Sharon without, she was shy about it, but she knew she could safely ask Sharon about sex questions that she probably wouldn't have been able to ask without fear of maybe being teased, like to Rayanne.
Do you think, like, Rayanne and Angela, like, was Rayanne a good friend to Angela? I know there's an episode where they dive into that, and Rayanne says, like, I was never a good friend to you. You didn't lose anything, when they have their, like, falling out. But do you think, like, Rayanne is a good friend?
Well, if I recall correctly, does Rayanne end up sleeping with Jordan? Okay, well, that's a pretty big, like, I don't know. I think that kind of is not a good friend, obviously.
Right.
But they're so young. I mean, like, you can't be a perfect friend when you're 15 and 16. It's like...
But doesn't mean she didn't help her grow. I think that's a big part. That's just a huge fuck up. But I think she helped her maybe learn more about herself. But that's, that's clearly a deal breaker.
Well, it's a nuclear bomb she drops on their friendship by doing that. And you watch her, kind of the way she panics when she realizes how devastating this was to Angela, how it affects her in her struggles against her addiction problems. Like, it just sends her spiraling. And I really liked the R-Town episode and the way they kind of brought that around. I know that's one of your favorite moments.
Goodbye. Goodbye, world. Goodbye, Grover's Corners. Mama, Papa. Goodbye to clocks ticking. Do any human beings ever realize life while they live it? Every minute?
No, saints and poets, maybe. They do some.
I'm ready to go back. Were you happy? No. I should have listened to you. But that's all human beings are. Just blind people.
Amy loves that scene. Amy loves that
It's
scene
the acting.
so much.
It's so good.
She's getting
It's
misty-eyed.
the cry.
Yeah,
It's
so
the
good.
cry.
It's the cry.
It's Claire Danes crying. It's Rayanne crying.
Yeah. I just love how Rayanne is like, you didn't like, you like, I lost a really good friend and you didn't lose anything. And I think somebody says it, I think it's Ricky that says like, she got to be you for one night. And that was her opportunity to like step into your shoes.
Right, because I think we think so much about the relationship from Angela's point of view, and you don't really think about it from Rayanne's point of view, is that Rayanne was gaining probably a lot more than Angela ever was. Angela's learning herself, who she is, what maybe she's different than what she's grown up to be. But Rayanne was getting a steadying force where she wasn't. Her mother was very loving. I don't think that that's uncontested, but just not present. I don't think her mother didn't love her.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't a stable relationship the way that like Patty really was.
It's like kind of an unfortunate like view of like a single mother. Like it's kind of like sad that that's the one example that they like, that the one kid that has like, that we see that doesn't have like two parents together is struggling with addiction.
Well, also, I mean, Rayanne's mom is not just a single mother. She is a wildly inconsistent, unpredictable, unreliable person. So their relationship reflect like you understand why Rayanne is so quote unquote self-sufficient. Is she has to be. She's she's basically taking care of herself.
Yeah.
To a large degree. And to say something like that, like, oh well, you lost a friend, and you didn't really lose a friend because I'm so shitty that my absence doesn't hurt you. That's an incredibly self-loathing thing to say. Like you see like that moment of just like, no wonder she's glommed onto Angela so much because like, oh, I do want the life that you've had. I do want to, even if it means stepping into your shoes to sleep with your boyfriend, I do want to be you on some level.
There's a scene in, maybe it's the weekend episode, so one of the last episodes where they've already had, where Rayanne's already slept with Jordan, and I don't remember exactly which episode, and Rayanne sort of says something to Ricky about, well, I'm going to be with the Chases. And you see Rayanne sort of has this, you see it go through her face, like all these emotions kind of flash, and she sort of, you see her reflect, and then she has to sort of shrug it off, and it's just this very quiet moment of beautiful acting. I wish I remembered it off the top of my head.
Is it when she's like chained to the bed?
No, I think I want to say they're maybe in school, and she kind of, you see her sort of reflect and kind of have to shrug it off because look, she's owning what she did, and she's very sad about that. But it's not like, I think she's sort of trying to not dwell on it at some point. I'm sure she's fighting with herself and what she's done. But there's this, I wish, I'll have to show you guys later, but it's really this beautiful, small moment. And just goes to show, I think, how fantastic of an actress that Rayanne, or what's her name?
AJ Langer.
I think she was fantastic. And that was just one small moment.
Was Rayanne drunk when she had sex with Jordan?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. And Brian Krakow videotaped it. Which then goes back to Brian Krakow is just always... He's just always there, and I don't know if it was clearly just like an accident, but he's always just there and weirdly like looking out for her or trying, I don't know, because he's obsessed with her. And it's not always in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, was that the right decision? I mean, it's probably better that she knows and she saw, like, she could have seen the tape. But, like, if Brian really was, like, the good friend, like, is it better that he wouldn't have said anything at all?
I don't know.
I think
it was very selfish.
Like, he wanted her to find out, even though he kind of, like, pretended, like, you don't want to see the tape, and, like, he wanted it to get out.
It was a mess.
His motives are murky. It doesn't mean he made the wrong choice ethically. Assuming his motives are pure, it still might be ethically correct that, like, you should probably know that your friends betrayed you in this way. But it wasn't
the right reason. Like, I don't know that he did it for that.
No, he did it to blow up the relationship so he could move in and try and get Angela.
Yeah,
no
100%.
Kristin, any other like storylines from the season that really spoke to you that we haven't touched on yet?
Well, I only rewatched 3 episodes.
Okay.
Out of 18 or 19. So the episode that I just watched today was the
Other People's Mothers.
Other People's Mothers, because I just saw it by the title, and like the whole mother-daughter thing is like very fascinating to me. And speaking of Rayanne's mom, it's like Rayanne was turning out just like her mom, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're so similar. And then that goes to show that Angela is way more like Patty than she wants to even admit. and like you turn out like your parents. You don't want to, but
Yeah.
you can't help it. You're, part of them, and you turn it into them in some ways. So, that episode was interesting.
I do remember watching that one and being like, I did resonate with me as being more as an adult. Even it wasn't even so much as like Angela and Patty as Patty and her mother.
Yes.
And
yes.
Mm-hmm.
what I thought was actually interesting is because there's a whole storyline about how Patty's adopted.
Yes.
But the actress they chose to be Patty's mother is very similar in like just everything physically. They look very similar. So I thought it was kind of actually a weird, not that as if you're adopted that you're not going to look like a polar opposite of who your adopted parents are, but for whatever reason, it's like they made a concerted effort to pick somebody haircut, body type, very, very similar, which I thought was interesting. But
it almost goes to show like it's nurture over nature, like
something
in some ways.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about Ricky too much yet, and a little bit, but I thought he was a really interesting character because one, just to have a gay character in the
early 90s.
Yeah,
early
especially when a lot of like sitcom stuff in the 90s, there was so much gay panic nonsense of like half the plot lines of like Friends are like, someone thinks Chandler's gay, and they have to like work around this like farce because of that. To hear like have a very realistically portrayed gay character, and as I recall, we never see him have a relationship with any. He never has any romantic relationships.
He likes that
Jordan,
boy,
doesn't he? Sort
He
of?
does
Yes.
have a crush on Jordan.
A little.
That little
And
on
he
that
has a crush
painter
on
guy.
Corey Halflick or something like that. Halfrick.
Yeah.
Halfrick.
Something.
Yeah.
But basically, he doesn't have a romantic plot line throughout this season. So it's sort of like all the downsides of being a gay teen in the 90s and none of the upside. So like you see him like that episode where he brings a gun to school because he's being so bullied. And then we get the back half of the season where they don't come out and say it, but that's probably the reason he was kicked out of his parents' house and has nowhere to live, like has happened to, unfortunately, so many people. I was incredibly shocked to see that in a show from this era.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely novel, and that's what's nice is this is a show that I think is, again, it goes back to, it's just, the feelings are more real, they're more intimate, it's not, and they brought in different, like very complex storylines that had there been a second season, you definitely could have dove in a little bit deeper into the Rand, the Ricky, some of that other stuff, but it was very special, and I think that was part of it. And then, oh gosh, what's his name? That plays Ricky. He's been in quite a lot of things.
Oh gosh, I have
I had
Wikipedia
him
here. Give me a second. Ricky is played by Wilson Cruz.
And he's been in like West Wing and other things, and he's fantastic, and he's always been like very emotive. But it's very special because that's not something that I think you ever had a serious plot line for somebody, especially not a teenager.
So where we going? Let me think. Look, you need some place to crash. I know a place. Thanks. My old man used to knock me around, too. He did? Hasn't done it in a couple years, though. He's too scared. Because the last time, I threw a chair at him. Well, I'm gonna light a candle for you on Christmas Eve. Oh, yeah? Think that changes anything? Uh-huh.
Well, do you think that's one reason why the show didn't get continued? Like, this was a little bit ahead of its time, and people weren't ready for this necessarily to embrace this kind of subject matter for teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to know, the alchemy that goes on behind the scenes in television production. I mean, they have a raw number of here's what our ratings are, but I bet it's hard to know why. And again, you have a show like this that really appeals to a teen demographic, and they're probably all chasing 20 to 40-year-olds. Right. And so
people who actually buy things.
People who buy things, exactly. And so I'm sure they were going people want more Friends in Seinfeld. This makes people feel sad. So maybe the show isn't going to make it. But
which is
Yeah.
like weird because like I will watch like the teen shows now.
Totally.
Like, so I feel like if I was in my 20s or 30s or my 40s like I am now, like I would have watched A My So-Called Life. Like,
But do you think this show was special because it only had one season?
yeah,
I think it
100%.
totally was.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, like most shows, you never know. Like if it had run like 5, 6, 7 seasons, by the time they're are we going to have them pretending to be in high school when they're too old?
Yeah.
Or are we going to like try and concoct reasons for them all to stay really close together when they should graduate and disperse? Or
Yeah, they're forever young in this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great
We can think about all the possibilities that could have happened in the future.
There is one thing on the show we haven't talked about yet, which we have to talk about because it stands out to me, which is the fashion on the show.
the flannel, all the flannel.
It is wild. Like, even for the 90s, this is like, especially poor, like, Sharon, the stuff they put her in, where it's like, it's a vest in the front and a couch in the back. Like, it's weird.
Yeah, they built it up a little bit more. Like, I don't remember wearing quite that much. I remember wearing Dickies and, like, T-shirts. Like, not so much,
I had
like...
two flannel shirts, but they
A
were in
flannel or
very
two.
heavy rotation.
Yeah.
Well, this was in Pittsburgh, so definitely a ways away from California and our style.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
It still felt like an episode of Blossom, like, had sex with a 4 Non-Blondes video and the Spin Doctors, and it all just exploded. Like, I feel like there's a lot of mixing and matching of colors and patterns going on in these really crazy ways.
It definitely wasn't the Delia's catalog.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's funny.
Yeah.
It's grunge.
Yeah.
It was grunge.
Yeah. Speaking of grunge, I thought the musical choices on the show were pretty solid.
I mean, they know, Amy and Kirsten know, like, what I think of when I think of My So-Called Life is the Buffalo Tom episode, which is Self-Esteem, which is the hand-holding episode. To me, that episode is just, it's so silly, but, like, the romance of just the holding hands and how horrible he was to her at the concert, and then the same song to play back when they're in the hallway, and Angela's and she's just like, I'm done. I'm going to be done with him. And fuck this guy, and he's so horrible. And she's kind of, she's almost making up with Sharon a little bit. And she's like, I'm going to just rewrite my story, and I'm going to be done with that. And then he's looking at her. I've watched this scene, so I can't even think of how many times I've watched this scene on YouTube, on whatever. And she's standing there at her locker, and Rayanne and Ricky are there, and they're talking, and you can see her kind of, and she does this like hair flip thing, and they're like clearly talking about Jordan across the locker, and Jordan is talking to who is actually in real life his brother Shannon, who's an asshole in the show, and they're clearly then talking about them, and Brian is like in the middle watching this whole thing happen, and then Jordan just is like, I'm done. I want to talk to her. I want to be with her. And like in slow-mo walks over to her, and you can just hear like the beginning guitar, and it just goes on. And I feel like you need to like play Buffalo Tom at some point during this episode, Doug, to like
Noted.
Can we? Go somewhere? Sure.
Angela, wait! Don't forget
The geometry review.
Forget it. She already did.
And you can see as he's approaching, you see, and this is like a real life thing because you could just see this happening in high school. And Ricky, and he goes, he's coming. And Rayanne, or what, the two of them are saying it, and so they're all just trying to play it cool, but everybody knows what's happening. And he's like, "Can I talk to you?" And then she's like, "Yeah," because what else is she gonna do? She like loves him, and they walk off, and she's trying to be cool, and then he just grabs her hand, and you're just like, this is what, at 15, you want a boy to, like, recognize you in the hallway and this be so important. and the electric guitar is going, and my heartstrings at 41 years old I will cry on the spot right now when I watch that episode. And you see Brian just watching this and like his heart breaking a little bit more every time. And then Sharon's like, don't forget about the geometry review. And Rayanne is just so happy in this moment. She's like, she already forgot. And it's just this perfect like button on this episode where he was so fucking horrible to her. And she just put herself out there and she did not want to. And Rayanne and Sharon made her go to that stupid concert where she had to go there and he was just so fucking horrible. And finally standing up for himself and being like, no, I like her. I love this episode so much. I mean, like, this is the episode. Holding hands at being 15 was just so important.
Well, that's heart flutter that you have about liking the boy, and then
this to me was like the epicness. Yeah. This was the epicness of the show. Was just seeing this. Yeah, that was. And so self-esteem to me is just one, because before that they're in the boiler room, and she's like, I don't spell my name with 2 L's or 2 N's or whatever.
Because they're just like making out, right? They're not like, and he doesn't want to recognize her. Right. All they do is make out.
And he's like, us down here in the boiler room, like, don't say anything. And so then when she tells that to Rayanne, she's like, why? Why is he being a scumbag? Like, she recognizes it right away because she plays this game. But I think that's what she says is like, but I don't get hurt. Like, my feelings aren't involved. But that's not the same for Angela.
So is that why the episode's called Self-Esteem? Because Angela's finding her own self-esteem?
Yeah, I think so. She finally, like, sticks up for herself. Otherwise, she was just like his side piece, secret thing.
And how much more the intimacy of holding hands than, like, kissing.
And that's what Rayanne even acknowledges. Like, she says it wrong, but she's like, it's an erogenous zone. Like, for her, it's like, it's special. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love that episode so much. If I had to watch just one episode forever, that would be the episode. I love it so much.
Do you have a favorite episode?
I always like the art. I like any of the episodes where you see Angela cry because she's just so good at it. But like so Our Town, definitely, like when Everybody Hurts comes in on the first episode and she's like goes to her mom's bed. Like, I don't know that I have a favorite episode, but there's definitely at least like little like spots of certain episodes that like speak to me.
Good moments.
Yeah.
Kristin, any standout moments for you?
I mean, now that you've described self-esteem, I
blow by blow.
It's like you read the script out loud, basically.
The one that I'm probably going to go watch again next is I've always loved the fashion show episode.
It's got the Enya song at the end.
Yes, and I don't know, I just always thought it was kind of a quirky episode that, again, as a mother-daughter, like...
You like that kind of storyline.
I do like that storyline,
I really liked the Zit episode. I thought it was well written, and this is
with the list.
The list, yeah. It starts off with a couple of teenage boys have written this list of like the anti version of like most likely to succeed. It's all just like, they're all bad to like just lascivious. Versus like, who's got the best ass in the school? And Shannon winds up on the list. Sharon, sorry, winds up on the list of having the Deborah having the best boobs, and it sends her off into a tailspin. But I think that episode is really well constructed just as a piece of writing thematically, because they bring in this concept of Kafka and the metamorphosis, and it's everything about being a teenager, right? Where just things are changing. Your body is physically changing. You're experiencing all these crazy emotions for the first time. And I love kind of that moment at the end where Sharon and Angela have kind of a reckoning where, Angela says, basically like, I wish I had your body. And she says, I wish I had yours, in not so many words. Just sort of that recognizing like, everybody's going through this different ways, but like everybody's in high school is just so fucking confused and hormoned out of their minds.
Angela delivers such a mean burn though to Sharon, who she knows clearly like is very like sensitive or hyper aware of her boobs. Like, congratulations, I heard you were on the list, both of them, or something. I don't know exactly how it's such a sick burn, and it's just so on point to like hurt Sharon.
Yeah.
Well, it says you have no value beyond these two organs.
Right. It sucks.
She's not mean very often either. It's like a side of her you don't see often.
But the two of them are mean to each other because they know exactly how to hit each, because they've been best friends since like birth.
Yeah.
They know exactly what to hit and what those like sensitive spots are.
Yeah.
Is that the same episode where it's like hold my hand as much as it hurt? No, that's totally different. That's with the
That's
dad heart attack.
Yeah.
That's when they kind of come back together a lot
Yeah.
more. They bond over her.
Oh, she's like,
her fear.
Is
She
that Life of
doesn't-
Brian?
They don't want to be like Claire Danes doesn't know how to like react to Sharon. Not Claire, but Angela doesn't know how to like approach Sharon. And
Yeah.
then Sharon's like, "You're the one person I wanted to like
Yeah.
be there for me, and you weren't." Which
It's
is a
nice
sweet
episode.
moment
It's a
for
really
the
nice
two of them.
Well, and
Because
she
they-
says
yeah.
she was being hands off on purpose because she didn't want to, bother her or kind of get in the way. And
Well, and they haven't been that close, so like for her to like come back, it's like we have those like certain things happen in your family life where it's like you expect these people that you haven't talked to in a long time to kind of come and be there for you, and either they are or they aren't, and it kind of like speaks a lot about that.
Agreed. Yeah, we've all had that kind of experience where people that should have stepped up did not,
Right.
and that's telling.
Mm-hmm. But I'm glad that they were able to like work it through. Like it happened.
Yeah, I think they ultimately
Kind of
the love for each other was more valuable than I think the stubbornness. Yeah, I really like the Life of Brian episode. I think it was a really unique. I don't think that was as that sort of changing the POV. I don't know. I don't feel like that was that. I think it was unique for its time. You get a like. I don't know. Do you guys watch that? What's the new Mindy Kaling show on Netflix that I like?
oh gosh, I can't remember.
Never Have I Ever.
Yeah, we watched that. That was good.
But they have in the first season they had one episode that was from one of the boys' point of views, and then in the second season they had from both main boys' point of views from different episodes. It was fun because it's totally a different. I thought it was really fun, and that seems like it's one of the precursors to that kind of thing.
There's a lot of stuff about TV from the 90s that is very transitional because everything from the 80s and earlier followed such a kind of a stodgy formula.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 90s, you started to see shows buck that, both comedies and dramas. Like I can think of, there was an episode of Homicide that was just blew me away because they did it all as like, it was a play almost. It was like one long scene as they just interrogated this guy. And it was like there was lots of shows like that. This is one of them where like, yeah, exactly. They're going to take a narrative chance and go, we're going to follow Brian's point of view. They did the one that mostly follows Danielle, the sister's point of view as well. They did it twice.
It's The Weekend, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's fun to watch these shows start to take these chances to where you see where TV's gone.
It would have been really fun in later seasons to see other characters' POVs, like a Rayanne POV episode or a Ricky.
Yeah.
But I like the Life of Brian. That's where they have the dance, right? I think that's where they have the dance because Brian's trying to get Angela to go with, but then he asks the other girl.
Oh, okay. And then Angela says like, I want to ride there. Mm-hmm. And he thinks that they're going together, and he tells the other girl no.
Yeah, he's just...
he's so unfortunate.
You're just an asshole when you're 15 and 16. You're just like, you need to know. But there's this... During the whole series, there's this... A lot of times where I think they say, well, why are you how you are? And for some reason, I think that it's like Jordan then turns the tables on Angela and says that to her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a really fun scene. It's a really fun like little scene. She's like, how am I?
Yeah.
And then at the end with the dance, and then Ricky is able to really like have fun and like
he dances
break loose
and
and just have so much fun. It's a really nice end of the scene. Yeah.
And I think that's why Delia
she has a crush on him.
She has a crush on him, even though he's unobtainable.
And I like how
she knows that.
She recognizes that at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think relationships when you're this age are so fumbling. You are going to make tons of mistakes. I know I did. I'm sure all of you did stuff back then. You're like, if I know what I know now, I would have not made that choice. And it's like you give these characters so much grace to fuck up because that's what this age is. Like, that's what you do. So as we're kind of rounding in towards the end here, I'd always ask this question, why do you think it is that people have still loved this show and, kept those DVD box sets?
Which I have mine.
Yep.
Oh, good.
I've taken
trying to get rid of
to like every move. Like, okay, we've gotten rid of our DVD player, and I still have all these DVDs, and I was like, I'm gonna throw this away. And Tony's like, no, you can't.
Well, you try to offer them. You try to pawn them off.
So I was gonna give it to you. Still, like, I can't bring myself to throw it away. Like,
Good.
it's a relic.
Even though you can
But
like
they're-
watch it on Hulu.
We
or
watched them on
whatever.
wherever we
Yeah,
watched.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but why do you think it is that, forget the media, like, whether it's digital or not, but the show itself, like, why do you think you can't give it up?
It's nostalgic. I mean, just like anything else, it represents our teenage years, coming of age, and it's just so fun to go back in time and watch it again. And the acting is great.
It definitely evokes feelings in an acute way that are just not, we're all parents, like we're all working. It's a different. You don't have the luxury of having such high emotions constantly, and it definitely, that same thing. It just makes you feel all of your feelings all at once, and it is really special. I feel like we could have actually talked a lot more about this, but it's just finding small little bits.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it does. I mean, I remember being so angsty at that age, and we all were, and we loved all these boys, and there was all this stuff, and everything was so dramatic. I mean, I remember my mom being like, "Why do you care what your friends think about all of these things? Like, what does it matter? Like, it's not that big of a deal." It was everything was a big fucking deal when we were 15 years old. Yeah. Every conversation you had with some boy was a big fucking deal. Mm-hmm. And this, I think, spoke to that. Yeah. In a way that, like, your parents didn't understand, and that is captured. It's a time capsule of that.
Yeah. I think it, like, imprinted on us or me when it was, like, I was at, like, an impressionable age. Yeah. Like, had I watched it at, like, in my 20s, maybe I would have really enjoyed it, but I don't know that I would have, like, kept going back to it. So, like, there's certain things about, like, our 15 and 16. Like, I still listen to Jewel. Like, I still listen to, like, Matchbox, like, maybe Matchbox 20 was a little bit later, but, like, still that same time frame where, like, you're just kind of, like, you're sponging and you're, like, soaking up all these things, and, like, you keep going back to those things.
How did you rewatch it when we were teenagers? Like,
I think it was on MTV.
No, I didn't rewatch it. I mean,
they had reruns.
Watching it, like,
we watched it live,
or like watching it like with your DVDs. I think we went through them.
Yeah, but I think in college it was it re-aired on MTV, so it had like a resurgence.
Yeah.
In the late 20s or I'm sorry, late 90s or early 2000s, it was on MTV, and I think it was kind of on a loop.
Yes.
So that did have a bit of a resurgence. And then I think all of us in college would have had, like, the college cable had MTV. So I want to say like freshman year.
Mm.
I think the show is incredibly authentic. I was really sort of impressed by the way, it's for a stage of life we all went through. I think TV writers or movie writers trying to write what teenagers are like, it's oddly hard to do. And there's very few works of fiction like this that talk about this, point in a person's life and really capture, like, what it feels like to be in this, physical and emotional headspace. I think I name checked The Breakfast Club earlier. That's probably the only other one that comes to mind as being close to representing, what it really feels like to be a teenager, what it's like to go through those emotions, to have your heart broken, to have it, like, put back together again, to have your friends, to have you screw things up with your friends and have them screw things up with you and try to put all of that stuff back together. This show very, very capably puts that on screen in a way that, like, it's such a rare thing. It's one of a kind. And that's why I think people keep going back to it, because I can't think of anything that's come out since this that does this as well as it does.
Incredibly talented actors. Claire Danes is amazing. She's in my, I don't know, is this politically incorrect to be like she's in my Brokeback 3? We've talked about that forever. But Jared Leto, he's an Oscar
Went
winner.
on to win an Oscar. Some of them, though, like, they disappeared completely. I randomly, like, found Brian Cracko on Instagram not that long ago.
Really?
As an actor.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
He's just like a surfer dude. I've seen him, like, posting random.
But, like, when we were in senior year in high school in 1999, and I met Jordan Catalano, aka Jared Leto, at this taco surf over there on PCH.
Yeah.
I think it's still in my senior yearbook, like the picture of us, and that was really fun. And I'm 99% sure he was stoned AF. The pictures, like, his eyes are so wide and dilated, and my face, I don't know if it's ever been a bigger smile. And like my mouth is large. It was like my entire face.
That's fun. You got to take like
Yeah.
a picture of that picture
I
so you don't lose
should.
it forever.
And I should probably, when I share this podcast,
That would be fun if you can
I might
find
have
it.
to find that.
Yeah,
That's
a good
fun.
idea.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think we've covered it. Anything anybody else wants to say before we just do a little quick closing stuff?
I just, if anybody's listening, you need to watch this show. Kristin has DVDs.
Yes, please email Kristin at.
You better not give those
check
away.
them out from
Yeah.
my library.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this one. We've got some good stuff coming up soon. We've got an episode on Rugrats in the works. I know we've talked about doing one on Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. So if you have thoughts on dishes are done.
Man.
If you have thoughts on that,
I'm right on top of that, Rose.
if you have thoughts on this episode, our recent ones on Fallen Angels, Masters of the Universe, DuckTales, tweet all that stuff to @NostalgiumPod on Twitter or find us on Instagram and message us over there. And of course, if you like the show, please do drop us a review. That really helps with the podcast visibility. So if you just want to put a star rating, you want to write something, whatever you want to do, we'd appreciate it. But that's all the admin stuff. So until next time, that is one more entry in the Nostalgium Arcana.
And dance by the light of the moon.
Yeah, what was it like shooting your new movie, The Rainmaker?
Oh, it was great working with Francis Ford Coppola. He's, amazing.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me again.
Hi.
What were your SAT scores?
That's actually a funny story. I went to the Oscars the night before, and I was totally out of it. I don't even think I finished the test. Isn't that funny?
No. I got the highest score in the history of Florida. I didn't get into Yale.
Oh, I'm sorry. Next question.
Yeah, I would like to date you.
That's sweet, but I don't think so. How about you?
You starred in that TV show about high school, right?
Yeah, My So-Called Life.
Yeah, well, it says in here that you didn't even go to high school, but you still got into Yale.
I sort of went to high school. I mean, I had tutors on the set of Romeo and Juliet.
Tutors? Huh? My boy stayed in his room 7 years studying. His muscles atrophied and he developed a dependency to no-dose.
Please tell me he got into Yale.
Well, why don't you ask him?
No, I did not.
I really am sorry.